Nothing in this recording is intended as investment advice, and the people in this recording may hold positions in the companies they talk about. Do not make any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to Zak's Traders Cafe. Today I'm joined by Karl Smithson, who is Executive Director at Hamak Gold. How are you today, Karl?
Hi, morning, Zach.
All right, so we met apparently even before you IPO'd, so that does show the level of research and diligence I do in terms of companies on the stock market. Maybe you can tell us a bit about Hamak, what it does, and also what you've been doing.
Yeah, sure. So we listed Hamak Gold on the LSE standard list. That was in March 2022. Just as tanks were rolling over the border in Ukraine, unfortunately for us. But we were successful in getting the listing away and raising a bit of money to go and explore. And the area that Hamak is focused on is Liberia, northern Liberia in particular, which basically shares similar geology, large part of the West African Craton, but similar to Cote d'Ivoire, next door, Guinea, a little bit further to the north, etc. And the thing about Liberia, Zach, is that for a long time it's been kind of unexplored, unloved, for all sorts of geopolitical reasons. But the last 15, 20 years, it's a completely different scenario where there's a lot of investment going in there. So there's gold mines operating, iron ore mines operating, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a pretty good jurisdiction to be present and active in.
Right, so you've been on the market for 3 years. Gold is soaring at the moment. It's probably gone beyond most people's wildest dreams in terms of $3,000 plus. It seemed as though it would never get there. The nice thing to hear from you would be that you're close to production, but where exactly are you on those milestones?
No, it's not close to production. I have to say it's we've since 2022 we raised this bit of money, as I talked about, just under £1 million. We went to explore a couple of concessions, but very quickly made a discovery in northern Liberia, which is on the border with Ivory Coast and just actually spitting distance pretty much across from the ET mine of Endeavour. I think it's 5 million ounces. Been mining for a long time now with very success, and we share in the same geology there. So yeah, so in sort of late 2022, we did our first drill hole over an area that we noticed as prospective. Obviously, the diggers, the artisans, they kind of point the way for you, and we found some sort of nice outcrop, gold-bearing outcrop sticking out of the ground. Did some trenching, did some sampling, and on the basis of the results that we got there, which looked like a kind of sizable area, over 5 kilometers long, 1 kilometer wide, we decided just to. It was, I guess, a little bit wildcatish at that point in time, but we stuck a couple of drill holes underneath this outcrop, and close to surface we hit 20-meter intersection at 7 grams a ton, which was like, wow, this is really interesting. So from that point in time, that we've kind of looked at the geology in particular, because it is a structurally complex area, a lot of folding, a lot of faulting, etc. And I think you've got to get on top of the geology before you throw too much drill dollar at it. So we've done a lot of trenching, a lot of mapping, a lot of sampling, etc., and really teeing up, and some geophysics actually, and really teeing up, what we want to do for the next stage of exploration. But irrespective of the gold price that you mentioned, it's been a real tough gig in the real small cap market where we are. To raise money at sensible prices. So it's always, if I dare say, it's been a little bit hand to mouth over the last year or so. So we, as Hamak, decided on a sort of a relook at how we can actually move this project forward. And as you would have seen in the news last week, and we can talk about now, is that we've brought in a joint venture partner to basically fully fund the project going forward. I think that's the sensible solution based on our market cap and where our share price is to have someone else come in and fund it, and we obviously retain exposure in the project going forward.
And that sounds to me, having I suppose not really followed your company properly since the IPO, like the best solution you could have come up with, a strategic partnership. And obviously, in the meantime, you've been sort of living on bread and water, so you've been very efficient in that way. And so this should be a big turning point for the company, especially given that you appear to have made some significant discoveries.
Yeah, that's right. And the attraction of this area to this company, it's a company, Australian listed company, I'll just point out, called First Gold. It's still a small market cap company, but they've had a track record of being able to raise good equity capital, and they've seen the attraction in this project. We got to discussing potential partnerships late last year, concluded them just very recently actually, and even before we concluded, actually they bought and shipped to Liberia two brand new drill rigs with 2 years worth of spares, such as their belief in this project. So we're basically going to be using in-house drill machines and team to basically accelerate and fast track basically the drilling program now going forward, with the intention, of course, of delivering a meaningful resource in the near term. So yeah, we're very excited to have them on board, and obviously the backing of their drills and their people, who are highly technically skilled people.
And so, you got yourself in a sort of decent position. You can move forward, and somebody else is footing the bill. What will success look like from now on, from this point into the middle of 2025?
Well, I think for our shareholders, the deal. Let me just tell you how the deal is structured. So yes, they're going to fully fund this project going forward. They've made a commitment to do that this year to a certain level of expenditure of $600,000 using their own drill rigs to basically drill ahead. At the same time, as they're going to progressively earn into the project through exploration spend and also issuing Hamak Gold, the company, shares in their company. So, for example, over the next 12 months, there'll be $1.9 million, which I guess equivalent to £1 million or so, worth of stock in the Australian company coming into Hamak, which is great for them to basically progressively earn into and acquire the project at the end of the day. Now, that might sound a little bit well, you're kind of giving away the crown jewels, but on the opposite, it's quite the opposite actually, because we now get exposure to the success of the exploration through their share, and their share on the Australian market. I think we don't have so much liquidity on our stock in London, but I think through basically the success of the exploration project feeding through to their share price appreciation, hopefully in the future, we will equally benefit from that. So I think that makes good sense. And the short-term success, as you point out, is the resource, and we've got a couple of kickers on top of the initial earning funds and shares. In that, if they and us as a team discover or announce a resource of 750,000 ounces, then we get an extra $1 million worth of shares. And then if that resource increases to 1.5 million, there's an extra $1 million worth of shares there. On top of, obviously, as we say, hopefully exposure to their share price appreciation. So, it's a decent deal, Zach, at the end of the day. And it just means that I don't have to keep going back to market at awful prices to raise a small bit of capital to not make very quick progress.
So basically, as I said, the company is sort of stabilized in a good place in terms of moving forward with a decent partner, where you are exposed to the upside, and potentially, I suppose, the more that's discovered, the more decent upside you'll get.
That's exactly correct. And now Hamak, what are we going to do next? Is we obviously continue to look for additional projects in the region. We obviously know Liberia. I've worked in Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea for a couple of decades now, if I say. And so we've got a lot of ideas in terms of how we can bring additional things into the portfolio, and try and enhance the portfolio going forward, at the same time as getting the benefits of the joint venture that we've just signed up to.
Well, that sounds extremely interesting, and I suppose it leaves you're still going to be doing more stuff for the company and potentially finding more projects. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And we're actively looking out for, and it doesn't necessarily have to be exclusively gold either. Base metal. The sort of West African region is has a lot of opportunity. Let me tell you, as I said right at the beginning of this pod, it's for the most part not been really well explored. Certain areas, in particular Liberia, I'm talking about Sierra Leone, certain parts of Guinea. But you look at what's happened in the Ivory Coast over the last 10, 15 years, where that was then to where it is now. It's just chalk and cheese, isn't it? So I think the thing here is if you ignore the politics or take a position where the geology is good, then the politics eventually sort of comes right, and the geology never changes, right? So it's always going to be prospective. So I think there's certain opportunities there that still remain to be exploited.
Well, we look forward to that. In the meantime, Karl Smithson, Executive Director at Hamak Gold, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks a lot, Zach.